Welcome, Susie. It's such an honor to have you here today. As such a successful mom and business owner, and you have so much experience in the online marketing world and um, in the digital strategy. And I'm so excited for this interview. So, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, can you tell us a little bit about when you started your business and what that looked like?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of side hustle going on. I had positioned myself in marketing and sales right after college. This was what I was really passionate about, being creative. And I kind of job hopped a little bit right out of school because if there was a position where I didn't feel like I could be fully creative, I was like, not going to work, right? I wanted this autonomy, this ability to kind of take my career and do projects and work that I was passionate about. So I kind of job hopped a little bit, ended up in a digital marketing agency role. So I loved the digital marketing world, and kind of on the back end, kind of my side hustle, I had started consulting with some small local businesses about social media. So they were paying me retainers of $300 to $500 a month to like manage their Facebook, and so I'm working in digital marketing, kind of doing these side things, and also started my own blog too. So I had all these different areas where I was, able to creatively express myself. And it hit a point where it was when my second one was born. So when my son was born in around, he was born in 2013, but it was that next year of 2014 where I was like too much. I felt like I had so much on my shoulders being a wife and a mother and, household, job, entrepreneur, blogger. I mean, there was just so many roles that I was starting to kind of lose it, and I thought something's got to give. And that was, the blog was actually already exploding. We were having days where there was thousands upon thousands of hits. So I had this confidence of like, I know what I'm doing. I know enough to be dangerous, so that was when I quit my job, my full-time, like all that. And just went full-time on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that line. I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's great. So you started gaining a lot of visibility and traction with your blog.
Mhm.
Writing every day, like what did that look like?
No, I wasn't writing every day. It was more, I caught on very quickly to the fact that you need to make people curious and you need to grab attention. And Pinterest was really big at that time. So I feel like I kind of caught this Pinterest wave. I mean, there's still a lot of activity and users on Pinterest, but at the beginning, at that point, I had started doing some strategies that other people hadn't thought of. So, with Pinterest, as you're scrolling, you're going to get more screen space if you have really vertical images, because just the way that the platform is, like the news feed is, if you make a image that's like 200 pixels wide by like 900 long or vertical, and then you put a border around it, and then you put some headline text like 7 ways to de-stress, something like that, those kind of things were getting repinned and repinned. Those things were like going viral, and other people were just pinning like stock images, or you know what I mean? So I had caught on to like, how can I get them to click? How can I get them to share this article and grab attention, make them curious? Those like kind of timeless elements of marketing, and it really worked. I had a lot of just so much traffic from things like 77 date ideas, or it was like a lifestyle, like a mommy blog. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a business plan behind it. This was me like creatively just dabbling. And yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Using social media to get traffic was a really brilliant strategy and it worked for you. So
Yeah, the platforms are always changing, which is interesting because now I see people who are riding this kind of Facebook Live wave where they're having a lot of success with that, or Instagram or Snapchat, right? Like it's changing. And I feel like I caught on to this wave. I don't use it that much anymore, but also because my business model has changed since then. I no longer run this kind of lifestyle blog. I do more consulting, selling programs and products to business owners. So it's shifted. Whereas I do still feel like Pinterest is majority consumers, you know what I mean, rather than B2B. But yeah, I mean, the good thing or the lesson behind that is like keep tweaking and keep playing around with things until you see these glimmers of, oh my gosh, that's working, right? Or always analyze what is working. Check out your Google Analytics. Where is the most of your traffic coming from? Focus your attention on those areas, instead of spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah, yeah. And I think catching a wave is such an important piece. I feel like I caught a wave. I started 7 years ago when I would say I'm a life coach, people are like, what's a life coach? And now everybody knows what that is to some extent. But I kind of caught this wave of search engine optimization where I just put stuff out there. And I feel like if you just plant some seeds, you never know what's going to work. Like you didn't know that Pinterest was going to work for you. Is that right?
Right. True. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really just about putting stuff out there and then seeing what works and then analyzing it from there, even without a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you mentioned that that's how you started. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you transitioned from the blog and what that looked like to really going out on your own?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll take you back to when we started getting all this traffic, right? And I'm like, what do I do? Part of I had a few friends in direct marketing, selling things like the protein shakes and stuff. It just didn't feel in alignment. I tried that for a hot minute and then I was like, it doesn't feel authentic. I can't get excited about selling this. So then I transitioned. I had all these women who would read my bio and I said I was working from home, which was totally true. I was doing my marketing work. I was a business development manager, was doing that from home. And then I travel into the city, to meet with my bosses or whatever once a week or once every other week. And then I was also doing the social media consulting too. So people were like, how do you do this? How are you working from home? And so then I wrote an ebook called How to Be a Social Media Manager, right? Because I felt like, okay, this is something that women could take who are at home with kids and they could kind of self-teach themselves social media, learn, taking courses, and then turn it into a business and do, run it from their laptop with their kids, at home with their kids. So I started selling that ebook, quickly realized I'm going to have to sell a crap load of ebooks because my product's only $20, and I hit that wall of how am I ever going to make a substantial income? Because I was getting a lot of traffic. That's the crazy thing. And still the sales were $400, $500 a month, not enough to get by into. So then I had connected up with a friend who had started doing coaching. And she's like, you just need to sell services. You need to start selling something that's more pricey. And it all clicked. I had this expertise in marketing, right? And so that's where it all started, creating packages. And I was really good with tech stuff too. So setting up websites, landing pages. I did all the tech, the geek, the nerd stuff, right behind the back end. So, women entrepreneurs started coming to me and being like, hey, will you build this? Or will you help me with this strategy? And I started charging, between $500 to $1,500 for services and packages. That's when I quit my job. So I kind of shifted away from this blogger world into consulting and services. And so it was easier, a lot easier. As a matter of fact, I had my first $10,000 month was in August, and I had quit my job in June. So it was like the first month probably did about $3,000 in services, and then the next month was like 6 or 7,000, and then the August was 10, and that was when I'm like, okay, now I've got some. I need to start doing more of this. But I also began diversifying, recording videos, because my clients would have the same questions or they couldn't afford something. So they're like, can you just teach me how to do it? So I started already recording videos, creating digital products and programs. And now my business, I would say it's really 50-50 between services and digital products in terms of revenue. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so did you use the traffic from your blog to support you in your service-based business?
A little bit, but there was also a disconnect because I was getting a lot of these stay-at-home mom types who they weren't super committed. They were like, oh, it would be nice, but I'm not going to actually try that hard. So I felt like like I wanted this ambitious woman who had already started the business and was like just struggling and needed help, or who was already established. So there was like qualities I was looking for, I guess commitment, versus just these browsers and dabblers and dreamers. You needed to actually have the hustle, which is what I had deep down is this massive striving, because I knew what I wanted, and I had this persistence. So there was a little disconnect. But yeah, I mean, we got some clients from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you really focus on more of the ambitious woman who wants to stay at home and build her empire, so to speak.
Yeah. I would say they have to have the vision. I can't create the desire for them. They have to have the desire in their heart. Like, I know I was meant to do this, right? I'm not going to go out there and try to like force you to have the desire and the dream. Like, it's got to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of desire, how did you know that you had this desire, and what did that feel like for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably comes down to my background, like growing up. So I grew up, both my parents were immigrants to America from Poland. And so growing up, we were, kind of lower middle class. My parents worked very hard. They both had multiple jobs, never really saw each other because they were constantly working split shift in like factories or whatever. So mom would work in the morning, dad would work at night, right? Like, it was constantly this sort of, you got to work really, really hard to get what you want. And there's also no extra money kind of feeling, where if I wanted something, I had to figure out a way. It wasn't that they didn't want to give us things. It was just money was scarce. They were trying to make it in a new country where they didn't even speak the language. Right. So, watching that, growing up with that feeling of, if we go to TJ Maxx and I see a dress, like, I got to find the $15 or earn it myself because, mom and dad don't have it. So I began hustling like from a young age, realizing babysitting, dog walking. I mean, you should see the flyers. My sister actually found one of the flyers that I had created when I was like 11 years old in one of boxes in some closet. And it was hilarious, like pulling weeds 50 cents an hour. Child labor. But yeah, I mean, it clicked. Like, if you want something, you can create anything out of thin air if you have the idea and the work ethic and like the ability to make a flyer
Yeah.
to your neighbors. So yeah, that stuck with me. I've always been entrepreneurial. Honestly, college and school was not my thing. I hated it. I just did enough to get by. I was kind of like that BC student. That it just like, to me, it was like jumping through hoops and tests and all this crap was like I never liked school, but I did it because my parents were like, if you go to college, you'll have a good future. Like, they had that mentality. So I listened and I followed. But then as soon as I got out, going back into the environment of kind of being a follower or a sheep, or like sit in this cubicle and from 9 to 5, I'm like, this is not me. Like, I can't agree to spend my life this way. I was just way too free spirited, way too creative, to be like limited and tied down. So, again, the entrepreneur started like emerging and finding other ways.
Yeah. That's pretty clear with how you had multiple side hustles and you were just letting your creativity be expressed without any real plan to it. You were just really, willing to experiment. And I feel like that's such a big part of entrepreneurship, is being willing to step outside of your comfort zone and really explore your own creativity, because, where you started is very different from where you are now.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree. You have to be willing to experiment. You have to be willing to fail. Right. And one of my mentors was saying, like, stop looking at it as failure. Like, just train yourself that there's no such thing as failure. It's just results, right? Everything we do creates a result. And if that's not the result that you wanted, hey, it's okay. Like, let's course correct. Let's shift. It's just constant action equals results. And that, is that what you wanted? Yes or no? Shift, pivot. You just got to keep tweaking. It's not that you fail. You got to keep moving, keep experimenting, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you manage, you work from home now? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you manage working from home and being a mom and being so productive? What's
Yeah.
your productivity hacks?
Honestly, I definitely believe in delegating and I believe in getting help. So we always had nannies or childcare. So, well, let me think about that for a second. Maybe the first few months it was a little bit scary when I had quit, my stable income. So it was a little bit more of like, okay, when can I work? When can I get 2 or 3 hours? And I'd stay up really late too, doing things till like 2 or 3 a.m., right? That hustle was there. But then quickly I showed, hey, there's money coming in so we can afford some childcare, and really creating those boundaries of when the kids are with someone else, I need to work really hard. And then when they're with me, give them your undivided attention and really be a good mom and parent. Now, recently, my mom has been watching the kids like full time. She was in a position that was actually like the job she got laid off basically, and it was sort of this perfect like God moment timing where it was like she had always wanted to be able to be with her grandkids more, and we were able to financially like support them so she didn't have to go look for another job. So it really worked out pretty amazingly well now that she gets to help out, be with the kids. And so I would say it's a really great schedule at this point. I know that we're blessed to have that right now.
Yeah, yeah. And my mom helps out. I have a 1.5-year-old son. My mom really helps out a ton, and I'm
There's
just so grateful for that.
there's no better care than grandma,
Yeah, it's true, grandma loves it too.
And I mean, we didn't have that right away. That's just a very recent thing. Before that, we had to definitely find childcare and babysitters that were outside of the family, because my parents were still working full time. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is even if you don't have family, like you can still make it work. We made it work no matter what because the desire was there.
Yeah. Yeah. The desire, I think if you have the desire, you find the way.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then what does a typical day look like for you in terms of your schedule? Are you working with clients? Are you creating products? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I get the kids ready. We get them off to grandma's house. Usually my days start around 9 or 10 a.m. I have a check-in with my assistant, my online business manager. And then I go into either client calls, depending on what day it is. I try to kind of chunk out, Mondays or Tuesdays will be back-to-back meetings. And then I'll leave Wednesday open for like creation mode. So then I can do a bunch of videos or writing, etc. So I do a lot of time blocking. Whenever there's tasks that need to be done, write down your top 3 things is a big thing that I always do. I have a little notepad next to my desk that's like, what are the 3 objectives, the most important things that need to happen today? Or I'll block them out in my calendar too, 2 hours for recording new videos or 1 hour to send out a newsletter or to write it. So it's really a mixture of a lot of client calls, meetings, interviews, blocking those things out, and then creation. Yeah, and meeting with team members. So if we have a promotion or a special or something, I'll check in with my OBM, and then I have a marketing assistant who creates like graphics and things like that for promotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I usually only work till about 3 or 4 p.m. So I would say I hustled a lot more at the beginning when it was all sort of new and like, am I going to make it? Right. And then I've sort of taken a seat of I want to enjoy my children while they're growing up, and like I have like a lot of respect for the Gary Vaynerchuk types, but at the same time I have this view of like life is really short, and I love what I do from 9-10 a.m. till 2 or 3, but I also want to be a mommy, and I want to be with the kids and do little adventures, take them places, and, meet up friends for coffee, just kind of enjoy the journey. I'm really big on that.
Yeah, it's such a great mindset and attitude. And I think it's so important because there's a time, I think there's a time and place for the hustle. Like you were saying in the beginning, you really got to get that engine going. But then once it starts going, really why we become entrepreneurs in the first place is so that we can have that choice of how we want to live and that freedom lifestyle. So
Yeah,
it's great that you created that.
it's the main thing, it's the freedom to choose. If I want to work a 12-hour day, I can. If I want to work a 4-hour day, it's the freedom for sure.
Yeah. Um, and either way, we really have that choice. It's just what we choose to create, right? Because we have the choice to work at a regular job or become an entrepreneur. We always have that choice available to us. One of the things that you're great at is getting you results that you can take to the bank. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's where that comes from is I always tell my clients we need to be focusing on income producing activities, right? I know it is so easy because we're in content overload, right? There's so much more content, podcasts, videos out there than we can even consume. I feel like we're just hitting this max, you know what I mean? And I find that a lot of people are not managing their day well, or I should say aspiring entrepreneurs are not managing their day well. They'll spend the whole day watching Tony Robbins videos or taking e-courses and learning, which is great. I'm a believer in learning and growth, but you need to know when it's like income producing mode, when you're, not making money, that you need to shift your actions into those income producing things. So doing things like setting up sales meetings, getting on interviews, whose audience can you borrow? Who can you get in front of? Where can you post or be that's actually going to turn into meetings, conversations, sales, right? Where can you build relationships? Because at the end of the day, that's where your sales are coming from, people, right? So you can't be so much into creating or consuming content that you forget to do your sales and marketing activities. So I'm a real stickler about that. When people work with me, I am on them. I create expectations and benchmarks, what you have to do. And then, I check in with you. Did you hit these numbers? Did you do these tasks? And if not, you're not going to get the results. Because I've had clients say the exact same thing. One of my testimonial videos, she's like, if you do what Susie tells you, you're going to get the result. If you don't do it, you're not, right? So it's like, do the work. And there's a side of me, I don't know if it comes from being a mom, and maybe you could relate to this, but when you don't have a lot of time, you realize like I need to make the most of the few hours that I do have. Mm-hmm. Right? Like spend your time in the best way, the most productive, most income producing way. So
yeah, it's true. When you have less time, I feel like you value it even more. So sometimes even when you have that full-time job, you can actually accomplish a lot on your business than when you quit your job and you're like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, right.
You have all this free time.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to another one of my mom friends, and we said to ourselves, we're like, what did we do before we were a mom and we had our own business? Like, we're still doing the same thing, and now we have kids,
right?
Because the pressure is on. I do think deadlines make such a big difference in outcomes, and if you know you're limited in what you need to accomplish, you'll just use that time so much more.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you really feel like, or I want to ask you. You really feel like you're living your life's purpose? Do you feel like you're fulfilling that?
Mm-hmm. I love what I do. My best days are when I'm speaking with my clients or doing like live calls in my group coaching programs where I'm connecting with people. I really believe, there's a few things I really believe around this. One of them being, if you're in a rock bottom or a suffering or a struggling mode where you feel isolated or down on yourself, or you're in a rut or something, I really feel like that comes from focusing too much on yourself, where it's become a self-absorption of what am I lacking? What do other people have that I don't have? And so I think that the purpose, the joy, fulfillment comes when you get out of your little head and your bubble and into the lives of other people. So when you're helping others, when you're reaching out, when you're on phone calls, live webinars, live whatever, when you are connecting with other human beings and helping them in some way, you will always be more fulfilled. It's interesting, but there's days where I don't connect with people and I block it off as like I'm just going to focus on doing my funnel or my whatever. And those days, like my mood, I feel like I'm not as much on purpose as when I'm working with individuals. You know what I mean? So that's one of my firm beliefs. Other things about purpose. Do I feel like I'm in it? Yeah, 100%. And that comes a lot from the helping, the reaching out, but also seeing the results of other people. So really being there for them all the way through. It's not just about selling your coaching package or your program or your ebook. It's about helping them to get the result that they want all the way through. So if they have questions, like being of support until you begin to have success stories. I think that is like, I don't know if there's anything that feels better than getting that email from somebody who purchased your book or your program and is like, oh my gosh, I just, landed a $5,000 whatever, or I sold 20 of my whatever, when they have, you kind of feel like this proud mom of, I helped them get there. Right. And and another tip for entrepreneurs that are sometimes going through those pits of doubt or whatever, those rough patches, reread your testimonials, reread the success stories that you've had. It will remind you of the difference that you've made, and it'll remind you like, yes, I am on purpose. Maybe today's just a rough day, but look at all these people who, I've helped, and there's so many more that need my help.
Beautiful, beautiful. I can even see it in you, how you light up when you talk about connecting with others.
Thanks.
So what advice would you give to someone who's saying, okay, I'm just not there yet. Like I don't have the testimonials yet. I'm just kind of on the brink. I know I want to start something. I'm just getting started, but my life isn't this, grandiose, amazing life yet. And yet I still want to serve people, but I kind of am holding myself back because I feel like I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What advice would you
few things. A few things to that question. First of all, I don't know if anyone's life is like grandiose. I think a lot of people show that on social media, but we all go through things like, come on, in our relationship, sometimes we feel like a terrible spouse or a terrible parent, or you know what I mean? Like you have your rough patches. So realize that there's no such thing as perfect, first of all. Second of all, if they are feeling, oh, I don't know what to do, I think that they're in that bubble, that head bubble where they're like just self-focused. What am I going to say, or what, like, it's all like I here. You need to get out. So what's something that you could do? A local workshop? Is there somebody online where you can partner up with them and they have an audience? Maybe it's not 50,000 people. Maybe it's just 10 or 20 or 30 people that you can connect with on like a webinar or live, whatever. But get out of your head and get into helping other people. Right? You have to get out of your head and get interested in what other people need and how you can serve them. Really take action on that. Don't just think about it. Set something up, make yourself accountable to something. Like I said, whether it's a live event or an online event, somewhere where you can show up and be of service. What was the other part of the question? So they felt like they're not living this grandiose. They don't know how to get there or how to serve people. Is that what you said?
Or they don't have the results like the testimonials yet.
Mm-hmm. So you only get there by putting yourself out there and attempting to help people. So you can do a live call about, I don't know, fitness or something. And if that like didn't feel in alignment, you didn't really enjoy it, like shift it into like, oh, it's going to be about self-care, or maybe it's going to be about balance and juggling time as a mother, or right, like take it and like shift little directions and be like, where am I going to be of the most use? And then listen for the feedback or follow up with people. Was that helpful? Did you enjoy that? Usually people are going to give you feedback. And that's where you need to listen to be like, oh, so I'm really helping them with this, right? Like, it's hard to see your own kind of superpowers, or what's some of the analogies I've heard? Like you can't I don't know, like when you are in your own element, sometimes you don't see what you're helping people with because it just comes out of you naturally. And then when you ask for feedback, they're like, it's interesting to hear. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing
Yeah. Feedback is so helpful. Feedback is definitely helpful, and really staying in action, because action brings that clarity. Whereas you're just stuck in your head thinking about yourself and what you don't have, it's going to be really hard to figure out what you can offer.
Yeah. And another thing I would add to that question would be get yourself to a place of certainty and confidence. Like, make a decision. I am going to be successful, right? I am going to, like, you have to commit and have almost, I've talked about having this like deranged or delusional, like certainty in yourself, this belief in yourself that's unrelenting. It's just, I am going to do, you need to believe it so firmly, because there's going to be a lot of people who doubt you, and there's going to be a lot of things that go wrong, and the results that you wanted but didn't get, or it was, failures or whatever. So when you know that you're committed and certain, you're just going to keep going because you have that tough skin of like, it just, rolls off your shoulder.
Yeah. Like Jay-Z says, he says, dirt off your shoulder, or something like that.
That's it.
What's the best advice you've been given?
Best advice I've been given. That's a good question. There's like two ways I could take that. One is, it's about relationships. Sometimes we can forget that. Being online entrepreneurs, we focus on our newsletter, our YouTube channel, our Instagram, and sometimes we forget that, like, legitimately connecting with people, relationships, a few private messages or emails or hopping on the phone for 15 minutes is way more powerful than like 20 Instagram photos, that are super cliche or whatever, that don't really impact. So like relationships are super critical, especially because we're like super connected with technology, yet so many people feel isolated and alone. It's like the depth isn't there. We're kind of surface, this text message, what do you call it? Generation, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so that one is one really key thing. Another key piece of advice, recording my information. So recording the journey, recording content, because that stuff is how you're going to scale. You can be very happy offering your services forever, but there's only so many hours in a day that you can work when it's just your time. So if you want to go beyond that, you really have to start packaging what you have, your information, into courses and products, and creating systems to sell that. So it's not always just, clocking hours for dollars.
Yeah, I love your answer, because you are, I'll say a marketing expert, and you really are talking about the people and the two main avenues in which that you can connect. One is really those relationships offline to some extent, or it could be virtual, but really actually physically connecting rather than hiding behind your computer and just posting on Instagram. And then the actual taking that and really being able to build a business or empire out of it.
Yeah.
Through using avenues online to touch many lives.
Yeah.
And one last question. What has been the biggest challenge for you, and how have you dealt with it?
Biggest challenge. Honestly, I could tell you, biggest challenge for me is environmentally surrounding yourself with other like high achievers, to be honest. And I'm very close with my family, but I am the only entrepreneur, and I have young kids. So we've made the decision to stay close to grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, cousins, because we want the kids to all grow up together and to have this stable, big family unit. However, the downside of that is, we're not in New York City, we're in the Chicago area, but still surrounding yourself with entrepreneurs that are up to big things. I think your environment is critical. Who you talk to, who you surround yourself is critical. And so that's been a little bit challenging for me, being a mother of young children, being really committed to giving them that stable kind of family environment. So it's something I need to work on, that, I've been going to more events in the city, spending more time around other high achievers, because I understand the importance of it, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's like, I really do believe that you are the product of like, you kind of, that 5 people you spend the most time with. I really believe that stuff. You kind of become like the people you spend time with. So make good decisions around that. And if they're not immediately in your circle, you need to work to go find them. Join a co-working space, I've got a friend who's part of this like yacht club, and she's like inviting me to these events because these are high achieving, high performing, ambitious people. So yeah, that's been a challenge, but I'm actively like working to surround myself with some more new people.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm always seeking to find those groups. And because life changes so much, like you were saying, I had kids and now I'm around my family. We moved closer to my family. And so, and now I have to seek out new ways
Right.
to find those high achievers, because there's been science that shows how, with fish or gnats. I know they did a study with a gnat where they put it in a jar,
Yeah.
and they had a lid on the jar, and the gnat was jumping, and it hit the lid several times. And then once they took the lid off the jar, the gnat still jumped the height of the lid.
Oh my gosh.
So, we really get used to a certain environment, and then, we limit ourselves based on it because we think that's just how it is.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's how everyone else is performing, or yeah.
Yeah.
I would really encourage people to, there's like online programs and groups and masterminds you can do. And I do have some really amazing online friends that we connect virtually on Skype and check in with each other. But also, try to find business clubs or organizations or groups locally. A lot of times if they're paid, they're going to be higher quality versus like these free meetups where you may have a lot of people who are very beginner. If you want more advanced people, there's often going to be these initiation costs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is it's probably going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Susie?
I don't think so. That was a good talk. I just really encourage people to stay hungry and to believe that it's possible. That mental certainty, making that decision in your mind is powerful stuff. If you associate with those terms, I am a successful entrepreneur. I am certain that power that you build up in yourself, the way you talk to yourself, those things are so critical to achieving what you want. You can't think that it's far away. You can't think it's something outside of you. You have to know that it's within you, that it's, you know what I mean? It starts here and then it will become reality.
Yeah, and my experience just with talking with you has been that you're totally in alignment with that message. I feel that energy from you, that you have that sense of certainty within yourself, and I can imagine how much that helps the people that you talk to, because when you have that, it just makes it so much easier to relay that message.
Thank you. Yeah, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to have bad days or we're not going to fall down. It's just this knowing that when I fall down, I always get back up. And so therefore you can't beat someone who never gives up, right? You just keep getting up.
Yeah. Beautiful message. And thanks so much for sharing our wisdom. Can you tell us more about how we can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is susieromans.com. It's SUSIE Romans, ROMANS.com. If people are interested in the mindset stuff, I do have a program. It's the moneymindset And if you guys want to email me, I'm sure we can come up with like a special coupon code. My email is me@susieromans.com. Shoot me a message and we'll give you a 50% off coupon code if somebody's interested in getting the mindset of that. I know that's where it all starts, So yeah, check out my website, product programs. I'm an open book. So if anyone's interested in questions or connecting, I am open.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing your gifts with us today. And we look forward to connecting soon.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.